doing that, I was face to face with it. It was holding me by my throat, and it felt like it was sucking something out of me.
I probably should have been more scared than I was when I witnessed the exorcism.
I turned and looked on my right side. When I did, there's a beam on the side of the tree, a large beam. It's looking at me and I'm looking at it.
After I hit the lock button and looked back up, I saw red eyes staring back at me.
That they're going to show multiple gods all over the earth, be able to speak in people's languages, and at that point, it kind of converge into this one entity, which will be revealed as extraterrestrial. You'll realize that aliens are the gods of old, and at that point, it'll wipe religion out of the context of humanity.
No, it couldn't have been a person, I know that. I know that people can't run through the woods like that.
So this thing comes into view, and I see it. It's 50 yards away from me. It's walking on two legs. It's huge. This is a big, hairy-looking being.
Welcome. I'm your host, and this is uNcomfortable. Welcome back to the show, my friends. I am your host, Eric Szilagyi. If you've had an uncomfortable experience and you'd like to have it featured in an upcoming episode, please don't hesitate to email me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. Please make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram, both at Uncomfortable Podcast 65. And most importantly, please help share the show with others and make sure to leave us a 5-star rating or review wherever you can. That is the main way that you can help getting this show out in front of more people, and with more people listening, that means more great stories coming through for you. Uncomfortable-pod.com is now up and running and is the official webpage for Uncomfortable. As time goes by, we will continue to add more and more information to it, but as of now, you can listen to any of the episodes anytime there is a special event. We will be posting it there. Currently, you can go to uncomfortable-pod.com, and if you go up to the top right and click the 3 lines, the little hamburger up there, it will give you access to ticket purchasing for Bigfoot and Brews 2 coming up on September 9th. Just head over there, scroll down under that tab, and there's a place to purchase your tickets for September 9th's event. Bigfoot and Brews, again, will be held in Dowagiac, Michigan, this year, September 9th. This year, Robert Kreider from New Mexico and Mr. Stacy Brown Jr. from Florida will be the main speakers for the day. Tickets are available. Seating is limited, so if you're interested, I would suggest picking those tickets up as soon as you can. You don't have much time. Also, I wanted to let you know that the Friday night before, at the same venue, we will be holding our first VIP dinner. And along with that cost, at $75 for the VIP dinner, you will get to hang out with Robert Kreider, Stacy Brown Jr., myself. The cost of that includes 1 menu entree, 1 drink, and a screening of Brown's latest installment of the Skunk Ape Experiments. I believe he told me that there were 4 episodes, about 20 or 25 minutes long each, and we will be watching all of those after the dinner. The link is in the show notes below. Also, if you're interested in helping sponsor this event, it's not too late. Please contact me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. We have secured a block of rooms at the Quality Inn and Suites of Niles, Michigan for September 8th and 9th at $120 per room, and that includes 2 queen beds in each room. The Quality Inn is a short 28 minutes south of Sister Lakes Brewing Company. Information for the Quality Inn will be in the show notes below as well. Please reference Bigfoot and Brews for the discounted room rate. If you are a fan of the show and you're interested in helping support what we're doing here, please go over to patreon.com/uncomfortablepodcast770 and see if any of the 3 tiers there interest you. Your support for the show has been truly amazing over the past couple of years. I can't tell you how much it's appreciated. The link for the Patreon and the Uncomfortable Discord will be in the show notes below. And now for tonight's guest. Logan reached out to me via email and said that he had been actively researching the Sasquatch phenomenon in the backcountry of British Columbia. If that's not enough, he's also stated that he has gone out on 3 expeditions with a very specific, somewhat controversial researcher, totaling about 25 days. When you hear who this is, you're kind of going to flip. So I invited Logan to go over some of his experiences, and hopefully we can get him to talk about who this researcher is and his perspective on him. So, if you're ready, I know I am. Let's get into it. If you would, please give a warm, uncomfortable welcome to tonight's guest, Logan Shesso. Logan, welcome to Uncomfortable.
Hey, Eric. Good to be here.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. We made short work of that. It was only a couple of days ago that you got a hold of me. And when I read your somewhat short email, it kind of had a lot to say. And it really perked up my ears quickly. Logan, let's get into. I mean, you're out there. You're researching Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. How did you get into it, and to what extent are you venturing out there?
So I guess initially, like, I was always and this was in the early 2000s before podcasts and everything else, right? So I was a big Coast to Coast fan, right? So
aren't we all?
George Norrie, yeah. Kind of a Art Bell, George Norrie. So I always listened to that. They always had Bigfoot interlaced in there. So, just listening to people's stories, that kind of got me, always hooked into Bigfoot stories. They were always so interesting to listen to, and listen to people tell their encounter stories. Sure. And I was more or less like, man, I wish something that cool would happen to me, right? So that's kind of what started the drive towards it. I really didn't get into podcasts for a while, and I honestly haven't gotten, probably the last 2 or 3 years, I've only been listening to podcasts. So what kind of began, I'll just start it with, so the researcher I've been going out with is Todd Standing, right? So how that kind of began is I was listening to Coast, I paid for their subscription where I can just listen to it, whatever, on demand, right? Sure. Kind of pretty much a podcast. So I heard him on there. I think he was on there with George Knapp. And he was going over some of his experiences, and he started talking like some weird things. And one of the things caught my ear where he said one of them actually picked him up at some point. Right. And I was like, okay. And then at the end of it, he said, if you don't believe me, come out with me and I'll show you. Right. And I don't hear a lot of people tell me that. Like when I'm listening to Bigfooters, right. Most of them are like, it's sporadic, I saw a glimpse. And, this guy's saying, I made this documentary, come out and I'll prove it. Right. I was like, okay, I've never heard of this documentary. This was like 2020. And I guess his documentary came out in like 2017.
Sounds right.
So I didn't know anything about it. So I went and found his documentary and watched it. And I was like, holy crap, this is a lot of interesting stuff here. So to me, it was compelling. I wasn't sure. I'm like everyone else, like skeptic, right? Like, okay, this looks legitimate. I can't find like the flaw of first watching it, right? So like everybody else, I go on the internet trying to scour, like, who is this guy? What's he doing? And I'm like, I can't find I found a lot of conjecture of like blogs and stuff saying, you know, he faked all this, that's a Muppet, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, well, they're not really giving me any evidence. Like, all they're saying is he's a fraud, but I don't see how they're proving he's a fraud. Like, there's no video breakdowns that I found that weren't conjecture of, look, that's obviously a mask. And it's like, what? I don't see a mask in his video. Like, how can you just prove it to me, right? So I know proof is a matter of fact, and like sometimes something's so good you can't prove it's real or fake. So, you know, like I said, I've come in to it as a skeptic, and I was like, okay, after at least a month of just trying to find stuff, like at night I'd go through and try to find stuff and what people are saying about them, right? I couldn't find really anything that, from my perspective at least, that kind of was a silver bullet saying this guy's a hoaxer, right? So I was like, okay. He said, come out with him. So I went to his website and sent him an email, hear nothing back, right? A couple months later, I sent another email, and then someone else, I guess, that kind of would like watch his inbox sent me something saying, hey, he's really busy. I don't know if you can go out with him, right? He's probably pretty booked this year. And I was like, okay, well, can you just put me on the list for next year? Like, I want to go out. I want to see what it's doing. So, and then like a month after that, he sends me an email and says, hey, I have an open spot. You want to come out still? Like send me all your contact info, your credentials. Like, he just kind of wanted to know, like, I think he gets a lot of people that just like basically play the game and then they're like not serious, right? So
I was wondering if you were going to get into like whether there was a vetting process, whether he vetted you, and you know, obviously you were making an attempt to vet him.
Yeah, and I had a call with him. He said he had a call with me. He wanted to know why I wanted to come out with him, and like what my thoughts were on certain aspects. Like, but you know, he's really into nature, like, and I'm in the kind of the same boat. Like, I love going outside. I love nature. Like, you know, communion, being free, right? So I don't know. We kind of clicked in that sense. But I mean, he kind of just wanted to know like my credentials. Like, also, like, he wants respectable people to come out with him. You know, I guess he would really prefer like PhDs and scientists, right? But someone that has a degree as well. Like, I have a bachelor's in computer science, so I have that aspect. But you know, he really just looking for someone that's passionate about it and like wants to actually experience something, and not just go out there and be like giving him shit 24/7, saying, calling him out. He's like, you're not going to have a good experience if the whole time all you're doing is saying I'm a hoaxer. Like, why are you coming out with me? Right.
Right. So
that's more or less the vetting process. And I think he gets a lot of people trying to go out there, and he said people will pay up front and then 1/3 of the people will just not even show up. Like, they don't even show up. Like, they'll pay like half, and you'll be like, okay, it's going to be this day. And they'll basically say, I'm not coming anymore. He's like, well, you know, the deposit's not refundable. Yeah, I don't care. I'm not coming. Right. So he's like, more or less, he wants people to go out there with him, but like 1/3 of the time, people just don't show up. So it's kind of weird.
That is strange. I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, it is 7 days or about 8 days out there in the sticks. So I think some people just they kind of get cold feet. Maybe, I don't know. I was all for it. So that's kind of the vetting thing.
That's a strange. Why he would? I mean, I hate to be this way, and I'm not trying to introduce any preconceived ideas. Mm-hmm. Even though I have seen enough to have formed some preconceived ideas, as I think a lot of people who are into it as far as I am may have. I don't see any reason why he would lie about that. I can't see that would be an area for contention, why he would say people would pay and then just not go. But that is a strange. I mean, money doesn't grow on trees. We all know that. and why you wouldn't be interested in at least trying to get your money back.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I did sign something saying, you know, if I die on this expedition or become dismembered or whatever, like they're not going to try to sue him because I'm assuming all the risk, and he's not. He's a guide. He's not like here. Like he can't take insurance, right? Like he recommends you have insurance if you come out because it is backcountry, bears, mountain lions, right? Right. So there is that aspect, and I didn't care about that, you know. I whatever, I'll sign whatever you want me to sign. I just want to go out there.
So, in your conversation with him, your phone conversation, where you guys are talking about putting this together, where you're going to do this, what's your initial read off of him?
He's really energetic. He likes to talk, right? Yeah. Sometimes if you don't stop him mid-sentence, he'll just keep going, right? So he's really passionate, loves to talk, likes to get into everything. He started talking about the ecology up there and everything else, and like kind of, you know, like that he's gonna basically not just show me or somehow show me Bigfoot, but also teach me about what to eat if you're there, like all the stuff that Bigfoot would eat, like all the berries to eat, all the plants you can eat, right? So he's really, he kind of just got into his background a little bit and kind of went into like, I think he told me like maybe a few stories. Like I said, it was like an hour and a half conversation, and he likes to talk. So it was interesting to me. But yeah, it was more or less just saying, okay, you know, if you want to do this, then I'll send you some emails and paperwork. You can put a deposit down, and then when it's time to go, and I think the first time I went, it was September, end of September. So, you know, I think I put a deposit down like in March or April, and then I had to wait like 3 or 4 months and then went out with him, right? So yeah. I can say, I mean, if you're going to go out with them, you know, flights and everything else, I mean, all that's money. If you don't live in Canada or British Columbia, like you got to take, you know, that's your expense to get there. And then it's public information on what he charges on his website. So if you guys want to know what he charges, just go to his website, right? Mm-hmm. I took it as, well, I looked at it, kind of thought, okay, if I'm out there for 8 days with this guy and he's going to feed, like if he's going to feed me and kind of be almost like a navigator, if I went to a hotel room for 8 days, to me, it's like, that could be the equivalent, right? Okay, so it's like, so if he's going to spend 8 days in the woods with you, like that's his livelihood. So I was like, okay, makes sense. Like I could see why you would have to, you can't just take you out there for free. Like, and like, and I think he does week on, week off starting May-ish to October. So I think something like 12 expeditions a year, like a week at a time. So, I mean, that's a lot of time and energy and money. Sure. So, I mean, that's why he charges. Like everyone gets upset about, oh, he's charging money. Well, like if you're out there in the, it's kind of like his livelihood. Like, I don't like, okay, I get it. This is what he does. Like, I get why he charges people because he's out there for so long. So,
yeah, you know, I mean, there in the community of Bigfooters, if that's a term, you know, there's some polarizing opposite. You know, some people get really, really annoyed with groups that are charging to take people out to have an experience. You know, because for one, there's no guarantee that you're gonna have the experience, and I think sometimes those types of people are viewed as disingenuous and just trying to cash in on it. But you bring up a valid point. If this is the guy's livelihood and this is what he's doing, you know, there is some expense to what he does, and he's looking to earn a living doing something that he's very passionate about. So, you know, much like any other business or podcast, you know, at a point, you reach a saturation point where without some kind of revenue coming in, the sustainability of doing what you do comes into question. And, you know, I've been fortunate that now with, you know, some ads running and, you know, I'm actually getting close to this being a self-sustaining podcast. So it's not costing me anything out of pocket anymore, and I'm not getting rich off of it, but it's supporting itself. And to me, that's a huge win. So, you know, from the standpoint of somebody like him, you know, I mean, I imagine where you meet him, there's a significant amount of travel to get to where you actually start going into the woods. And then, you know, like you said, if he's providing you with meals, you know, a couple of squares a day, and making sure that he's guiding you in a safe and responsible manner for 8 days, I can see there'd be some significant cost to it.
Right. And it's not like he only takes at the most 3 or 4 people at a time. Like, that's pretty much all he does. It's not like he's inviting 20 people at a time and trying to cash in, right? Because it's not really, it's not sustainable. It's not doable from his perspective, just talking with him, right? But, I mean, if you did the calculation, you could probably figure out how much he's making a year doing it, and it's still not making him rich, right?
Right.
He's earning a living, so it's a living, right? So I don't know. I was okay with the cost. I have a little bit of means, and then I was like, you know, I want to go somewhere where they say there's experience. I don't want to go out in the woods and camp. Like, I can do that anywhere. I want to see if I can see something, hear something, you know, see the evidence. That's what I want to do, because I've never seen it before, right? Especially where I'm at. Like, there's really nothing around here. Anyway, I know there's some people that say there's activity in Texas. I'm not in touch with those groups, and all the land in Texas isn't really forestry, in my opinion. It's almost like a half desert. So the people that own the land, you got to get permission to go on it, because everybody owns the land in Texas. There's not like, so anyway.
Well, I've heard several people. In fact, I know a guy that just moved down to Florida, or down to Texas, fairly recently to reunite with the rest of his family. And they're in eastern Texas, and there's something there called the Big Thicket.
Yeah,
and that supposedly has a lot of experiences going on there.
Yeah, I'd love to get in touch with some groups that aren't like so pro, I want to kill this thing, right? I don't know. I feel like a lot of Texans have ruined that experience. And this is just my perspective, like opinion, obviously. But, you know, like kind of a shoot first, ask questions later mentality down here a lot of the times, right? Yeah. I don't know what that is. I'm going to shoot at it, right? So, I don't know. I feel like almost like all the stories I hear down Texas, Louisiana area, they all seem kind of hostile, right?
After we're done recording, I can put you in contact with a family that's over there in East Texas that is not pro-kill.
Okay.
And I know the son personally. I've met the dad. Good people. And I'll get you their information after the show.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm always looking for somewhere local to go, but
no place is local in Texas. Everything's 1,000 miles away, isn't it?
Yeah. It's 2 or 3 hours in any direction to get anywhere that's not basically flat farmland where I'm at. So
yeah. Okay, so let's get into the meeting, what you guys did, how you went about it, and what, if anything, you experienced.
So, like I said, and I'm kind of go through the steps, you know, if you want to get more into the meat of things, just cut me off at any point here. But, you know, he picks you up from the airport. He takes you, it's somewhere like 3.5 to 4 hours away from, he lives in Calgary, right? So it's about 3 or 4 hours, somewhere in the mix of that, away from Calgary in the Radium mountain range, right? So you pass Banff, and then it's in between Banff and Radium, kind of, right? That's the best general location I could give you at this point.
I'm not going to ask you for specifics.
So you get out there. I got out there, and it was basically I had a late flight, so it was dark by the time I got out there, and I was out with another guy from, I think he was Red Deer. His name is Craig. So we basically all just went out there together in his truck. He actually has a camper out there that he basically just leaves in this forest. Nobody messes with it. It's been there for years, and it's almost like squatting rights at this point, but I don't know all the Canadian laws. So we get out there, it's pitch black, he's like, let me get out, make sure there's no wild animals, getting into his camper, and it's not like this awesome camper, right? It's like this 1985 camper with no power. You use it just as a shell to sleep in so bears don't jump on your head, right? That's basically what he's using it for. He's got some solar out there that when I first went out there where he could like turn on the power to charge your phone and stuff for a little bit. But I mean, this camper is not the lap of luxury whatsoever, right? So, and he has e-bikes. He has 3 or 4 e-bikes that he maintains because he's kind of his approach is a little different now, but like he really want people to be kind of fit and be able to hike. And like when you're hiking all day, like you're kind of wore out. So the next day he kind of just wanted to take the e-bikes out and like have that like available to not be like basically just sore the whole time you're there. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what he also has expense there and, maintaining all that. But so we get there, he makes dinner. We kind of sit around. He has a fire, and this is kind of like his base camp area, right? So this is, even with my experience, this is basically where most of the activity happens anyway. And it's kind of on like this plateau. There's mountains all around this place, and it's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of like a little tiny lower elevation, and then it's kind of got some hills around one side of it. So it's almost like. He's at a disadvantage. Like if like everywhere around this place, like trees everywhere is an open spot. It's like an open field, trees all around it. So anything can go any way 360 around this place. And there's a hillside on one side. So he definitely doesn't have any kind of advantage, whatever you want to call it, against anything out there. Right. So, I just getting used to Todd and Craig and just, getting him to tell me stories and stuff. And like I said, he can talk, he can tell you stories all day. Right. So more or less, first night we just kind of were tired. I've been traveling all day. I just went to bed in the RV and woke up. Right. And like I said, he kind of has a plan, and at the same time he doesn't. Like, people say, well, he just kind of leads you somewhere and he has something happen, right? Like a setup. He kind of just says, you guys can do what you want to do. We can go here. You can go here. Like, what do you guys want to do? Like, it's your expedition. If you feel a sense that you want to go this way, let's go that way, right? So that's kind of what we did. We went out. He has this, I'd say it's about 80 yards away from the fire pit that we have every night. Up a hill. Like he showed me some tracks to start off with the next morning. He said, I've been putting apples out here for the last week. They've been taking them. There's like moths, like real mossy area where you can see these huge tracks going up this hill. Yeah. Right. And they're big. I'm not like a scientist. I didn't get out a ruler and start measuring stuff because I don't, to me, it looked legitimate just looking at it. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So we go up this hill and he's like, all right, let's put apples on this tree like we did on Survivor Man. So I get on Todd's shoulders, and Todd, you can't see it, but this dude is built like a football player. Okay. He's hiking all the time. And I'm looking at his legs, and he's huge. Like he's actually an ex-football player. He used to play college, professional Canadian football in, I guess, his 20s. I don't know. But he's a really fit guy, and I get on his shoulders. So and I put all these apples up this tree, and I'm on his shoulders, putting them everywhere. Probably He's 6, anyway, probably about 12, 13 feet in the air, like all over this tree, just nailing like 15 of these red, delicious apples up there. I get down and he's like, okay. He starts trying to teach us about, this is where they've been taking them. Like, I feel like they led me here because they put tracks up this hill. They didn't have to walk up that hill. They didn't have to leave tracks. So that's why I've been putting apples as a gift, like a gifting area. I'm like, okay. Teach their own. Like, I don't really know anything yet. I haven't seen anything. I don't know anything about Todd. I'm just listening. And he's like, okay, so tree knocks, my thing on tree knocks is that sounds more like a rock knock than a tree knock. And I want to show you what I'm talking about. And so he picks up a rock and he said, hit that tree with that rock as hard as you can. Right. So we're up on this hill with a gifting area, he calls it. So I hit the tree with a rock and, it makes it hurts your hand a bit, but it makes a loud sound. And then he's like, okay, so to me, like, I don't think they're wood knocks. I think they're picking up rocks and hitting the trees with it, right? It just sounds more like a rock sound than a tree on tree. I was like, okay, interesting theory. He's like, okay, Craig, you try it now. He's like, this time when you try it, let's just give it a minute. Because most of the time when I do 2, like, I don't know, for whatever reason, like I get something response back. And he's like, okay, so Craig hits this tree real hard. He's hurt his hand. We're sitting there just listening. And I can tell the distance. I can tell the general direction and everything. Like, it's probably 100 yards, like north, west of us. And you just hear this super loud, like, boom, right? Sound like somebody hit a tree with the biggest baseball bat you ever heard, right? It was like 4 times louder than what we did. And I'm just kind of saying, like, seriously, I've been here for like half a day and I'm already getting this. Like, what is this? And I'm like, okay, that's super interesting. And he kind of he's like, yep, I told you, like, this happened. Like, you guys, no one believes me. This is happening. This is real. He's like, I'm going to show you the area. You can believe what you want to believe. You think I have a guy out here running around, at the end of this, you can tell me. Right. And I was like, okay. He's like, at this moment, like, my methodology is when I hear a sound like that, I just basically the next day I'll go look for evidence. Right. And I don't like go running towards it because I don't want to, like, and this is him talking, I don't want to, like, ruin the relationship or, like, be overzealous and drive, make them uncomfortable. Like, I just want them to be around, especially for you guys. I want them to see you guys, make jokes, laugh. Like, his perspective was, the more laughter and play, the more they're going to want to come and, like, check you guys out. Right. I was like, okay, makes sense. So, we're all 3 guys. We make lots of jokes and we're doing all that. But, well, like, I really wanted to go check out this rock knock area. But, we just kind of went on to something else, right? So,
well, that seems like
thing that happened to me.
I'm sorry. That seems like that'd be a very difficult thing to do. You had the general direction that you thought it was coming from. You had a pretty good idea in your head how the distance away from it. But to actually go and look for evidence of a tree knock or a rock clack or a rock knock, I think we just added a new rock knock. I think we just added a new term to the vernacular. From the perspective of somebody that was their experience in it, if you don't move towards that area and try to get it to repeat itself so that you can kind of hone in on it, I'm assuming everywhere you looked there were trees, and everywhere you looked there was, the area was indiscernible from the next. So I don't know. I mean, I get his idea behind not wanting to scare them off and just, having a safe place for them to continue to interact. But man, it seems like it'd be awfully difficult to go off and the next day even and try to track down some form of evidence.
Yeah. And he more or less said the same thing. He's like, I don't know if we'll ever find any evidence. We can go in that direction and look, right? Like, he's like, I don't know. I don't always find evidence, but we can look, tomorrow we can go look for it, right? And I was, like I said, I'm new out there. He knows this area. I didn't want to question his methods. I just kind of wanted to have an experience. That's really what I went out there to. I wanted to have an experience. I wanted to have a sighting. I wanted something, right? So I'm just like, okay, whatever gets me something, I'm okay with. Like, you kind of running this show here a bit. Like, I'll just listen to you and keep moving, right? So that's what I did. But he's kind of changed his methodology a bit since the first time I came out, honestly. So when I went there, the last expedition with him, he was completely 180 on that. Like, he's totally changed. Like, I don't know. Everybody has to try something different, so that he's basically walking. Anytime he hears anything, he's going towards it now. So I don't know, right? To each their own. Like, he's like more or less thinking that, if they're making a sound now, like they're inviting me to come play with them, I'm going to go play with them. Right. So when I first met him, he wasn't that way. Now he is.
How long of a span of time from the first time you'd been out with them till the last time you were out? A couple of years, 3 years, 5 years, 6 months?
So 2021 September, and the last time I went out with him was 2023 July. So about 2 years. So, so I went out in September 21, and then July of 2022, it was June of 2022, and then July of 2023. So kind of like once every year so far.
Yeah. And the last time just last month.
Yep.
So I'm curious, does he talk about the issues that he faces with regards to what some people say about his credibility? Does he circumvent that at all, or does he cover that with you guys?
I mean, I don't have anything to lose, so I question the shit out of him. So, I mean, I actually, you had brought up at some point his sister was makeup artist, special effects artist. He lives with his sister. I met his sister. She's got children. In no way or shape or form is she a special effects artist. I think she was a hairdresser, right? That's what she did. So if you think a hairdresser can be a special effects artist, you're pretty much dead wrong. And she's a very nice person. She's in her, I think, probably her 40s or late 40s. Like I said, kids. No, I didn't see, like, I actually stayed at their house for a night, like, before I went to the airport to leave. I mean, I didn't see any evidence of any of that. Like, yeah. I talked to her for like an hour and a half. Because she kind of told me some stories and like how Todd was when he was younger and how he's kind of fearless and all this stuff. But I poked at her, I think, a few times saying, "Are you sure you're not special?" And she's like, "No." I don't know why people say this stuff. So,
well, I think, like, going back to what we were talking about before we started recording, there is so much out there that you have to weed through that is unsubstantiated. It's horse shit. There's, anybody who's got any kind of an angle that if they don't want to see him be successful, they're going to come at him and say, oh, it's this or it's that or it's this or it's that, and it's not just him. It's the community of people in Bigfooting. It's so divisive. And if you want to prove it to yourself, just, join some Reddit groups or some Facebook groups that it's just, these people just tear each other apart. Yeah. And it's a shame, that people have to be that way. Evidence wise, from watching his documentary, good Christ, if that's real, if those faces that he had such crystal clear images of, if that's real, I don't see any reason on God's green earth why you would not provide everything that you had to show that to show proof that that was real. You know, people argue that, you know, what we get to see is only a couple of seconds. You know, where's the video leading up to it? Where's the video afterwards? You know, everybody's got these expectations and these desires that they want in order to substantiate the proof for themselves. You know, and unfortunately, then that kind of becomes the norm. So when, you know, you get a group of people that hear this one person say, well, you know, that can't be real because we don't know what happened in the 30 seconds before that and the 30 seconds after it. So, you know, it's not real. Well, then you got a bunch of other people that are like, yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. It's not real, you know?
Well, I can tell you he did that footage before. It was probably like 2000, the main like up close HD faces, right? Mm-hmm. He did that. He released that footage like 2008 to 2011, right? And there wasn't a whole lot of, hey, I have an iPhone in that era, right? and he showed me the camera he recorded it with. It's like a Canon, you know, it's a good Canon camera, right? And he would carry it with him around his neck. You got to think, you're not going to record with a Canon camera 24/7, right? It's going to run out of batteries.
Sure. So
if you're coming up and you see something, you're going to pick up that camera, you're going to hit the button, you're going to point it, right? There is no lead up, right? So I get his perspective. And that was his response to me when you asked I asked the same question, right? He's like, well, there is no lead up. Like, I saw it and I was like, holy crap, I got to record this. I pick up my camera and I hit record. And that's it, right? So, and he's like, and it was hard as hell to get those shots, like trying to weave in and out of the trees, like to make it focus on the right image. And then he has like a whole breakdown of like the one that looks like an Ewok, everyone says, of how he had the camera at this, you know, I'm not a photographer, but he had the camera at the wrong lighting setting, and it was like super daylight. There was no clouds out, so everything was just botched with the lighting for this face, right? It looks messed up because of he had it like in like night mode and all this other stuff. And he goes into like how he had to like do all these things and how he had to like crawl and get into this area. And like I said, this guy he's been backcountry for so long. Like he's literally risking his life to go out there. Like, he has balls of steel. I will give him that. Like, I saw the mountain ranges he went up. I actually slept on the mountainside that Survivorman did on his episode up the mountain. I slept up there. I went up there because I wanted to go up there, and it is a damn hard hike. It takes 8 hours to get up that mountain. So this guy is no joke. Like, when he says he's backcountry, he went backcountry. Like, he went over these mountain ranges, middle of nowhere, by himself for weeks to get that footage. Yeah. Right. So I don't know. I can see how people are skeptical and say, "Oh, that doesn't look real to me," right? But to me, it looks real enough to say, I need to go out with this guy and see if he's legitimate. Right. And I, if someone says, this is how he did it, I made the exact same thing, or this is similar, and this is how you do it, this is how he did it, I'd be like, oh, well, maybe he's full of shit, right? Maybe some of those are full of shit. I don't know. But I haven't seen anyone actually, to me, what I've scoured and looked at people's evidence, like, I can't see, no one's replicated it. Everyone just gives it shit because they, like, you know, either they have a big ego and they're like, oh, that's fake, or they just don't try to dive into it and be like, is this real or not, right?
Isn't it funny? Because everybody bitches and complains that all the photos are blurry and everything, you know, the terrible lighting and it's terrible conditions, and you're using a cell phone and you're removing and they're terrible pictures. But then you get some that are like pristine quality, and then they want to tear those apart as well.
I mean, it's not like just a glimmer either. Like, it's a recording. Like, you see this thing blink, you see a fly land on its eye, like, and then you got people saying, oh, it's a robotic Muppet. And I'm like, have you hung out with Todd? The guy is not tech savvy whatsoever. He can't build $1 million robot head. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like I went out and I like I said, I'm a tech guy. I started questioning him like how he's doing certain things, and he don't know. He is not a tech guy. He can make a documentary. Maybe he's good at making documentaries, right? He's getting good at putting videos together, right? And being that, level, like his documentary was, in my opinion, it was really good. It was well put together. It was a little long, but he did have PhDs with him, and he was trying to get into the science, right? So, but I don't know. It's just, I just think it's crazy that people are like just so quick to judge and say it's fake when they don't even look into it. So that's what I wanted. I wanted to be, okay, I can't figure out this guy if he's real or not. Can't figure out, like, I can't find any evidence of him faking it. So I'm going to go out and see if he's full of shit or not. So that was my perspective the whole time. Like, I want to see how he lives. I want to see how organized he is. I want to see, I met his, like I said, I stayed in his house, met his sister. Like, so I was in his world for a bit, right? So I got to know the guy. So, I got what I needed out of it. But, everyone else can think what they want to think. Until you go out with them, you're not going to know.
Yeah. So what did you come back with as far as experiences?
So I'll try not to make it so long. I think I can talk for a while.
You're fine.
Like the first expedition, like I said, there was that rock knock. The next night, or it might have been that night, I have all my notes down, but it gets jumbled on the lineage or the chronicles of the days here. But like either that night or the next night, or by the fire, just it's 9:30 Mountain Time. The sun's down, and we're just talking, whatever, just talking about stories. And we hear this weird, almost like an owl sound, right? And like I said, it's 30 yards from us on my left, and you hear it twice, and it's kind of like just a weird sound, right? Didn't quite, like, I'm not an owl expert. It just sounded weird, right? So I was like, Todd's like perking his ears up like, yeah, that's not normal, right? He's like, I can't say it's not. He said, I think he said at the time, a sowie owl. He's like, I can't say it's not, but it didn't sound right, right? So we just kind of listen. He's like, okay, well, just keep your backs to the wood line and let him come in further, because I think that's something. So we're just talking about literally 5 minutes later. I'm in front of the fire, and my back's like, there's this kind of pathway to the woods behind me. It's like 10 feet, right? All you can see around us is darkness. This is the middle of nowhere. And I just hear this like chip, 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 like a chirp. Never heard it. Didn't sound like a bird. And it was coming right. It was so close to me. It's probably, like I said, 10, 15 feet behind me. And I'm just like, what in the world is this? He's like, I've only heard that once before. And because it just sounded for a little bit. Freaked me and Craig out a bit. And he's like, I've heard it once before, and that sounds to me like it's a juvenile baby Sasquatch. And I've heard it once before. He kind of goes into the story, but that's what it sounded like to me. I was like, oh, it sounded super weird to me. It definitely didn't sound like a bird. It was like a very weird chirp, right? So that's about all that happens for the rest of the night. And the next morning, we kind of go evidence hunting. So we go to that spot where we kind of heard that weird owlish sound. And like I said, Todd, he's very much skilled at tracking. Like he goes into all these stories about he was trained by some Cree elder, and he's a tracker. And you can see it. Like he's definitely good at what he definitely knows his way around the woods, right? So we're walking out there. He doesn't even find it though. So Craig finds this track. I think we measured it about 14 or 15 inches long. You can see the toe indentions where it looked like someone was standing there for, I don't know, an hour maybe, right? Like it left an impression. It was standing on top of this little juniper bush, right? Like on top of it, it pressed this bush down, and you could see where its feet were, and they were like, I want to say this one was about 5 inches in width at the heel. And if you put your camera up to where this thing was, like in the air, right, you can see our campfire perfectly if you're 8 feet tall. Right. So I was like, okay, that's pretty weird. And it's not like Todd led me over there, or Craig over there. We just went over there on our own trying to look for stuff. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is weird. And he's like, Todd, check this out. He's like, yeah, that looks like something to me. Right. So, okay. So, and then we're like, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm kind of a tourist in this land, so I take pictures, right? And then I go, and then we go up the hillside to where we heard that rock knock, right? And he's like, guys, I really don't expect you guys to find nothing up here. Like, we can look, but and he's showing us like all these tree breaks. He has, I can go into tree breaks with you, but he's got so many tree breaks around his base camp, all around that general location. It's ridiculous, and they're all very weird. Like there's ones that are 10, 15 years old. There's ones that are a couple months old. And there's some of those trees are 6-8 inches in like diameter, and that doesn't make any sense the way they were broke. So he's kind of showing us all these tree breaks while we're looking for some evidence, right? Saying, look at this tree break, look at this tree break. What do you think about it? What's your opinion? He's like, can a human do this? Do you think nature did this? You think Snow Load did this? And we'll sit there and play with the tree, and there's no way I can bend this tree. There's no way I can have this clean break, right? Yeah. It's like almost like a pressure break, right? If you ever watch his documentary, he kind of goes in with one of the PhDs in that, right? But he's showing us all this, and then Craig's like, hey, there's tracks going up this hillside here, and we go over there, and there's these, again, probably about 15-inch tracks going up a hill, and we literally, Craig's like walking the tracks. There's probably about 5 or 6 of them. And it's not like a rain or anything. Like there's just like deep impressions. It looks like a foot. Doesn't look like a human foot. It's really big. It's going up this hill, and they're in line, like everybody says. They walk in line, and there's space to where you have to do lunges to go up this hill, right? It's like nobody goes up a hill doing lunges, right? So they're so far apart, and then you see, and this is weird, you see where this rock is missing out of the ground, okay? And then about 5 feet up, this rock's on the ground away, and you can see where something picked up a rock and then placed it like 5 feet up this hill. I looked at the trees around there. I didn't see any evidence of like it getting hit. Like there was no tree that was smashed, right? I couldn't find one, at least. But it is weird that we heard that. We went to that general location. We found something that kind of matched what we heard. And then, there's tree breaks all up this hillside. So it's like, coincidence. I don't know. I don't really believe in coincidence that much. Like if there's evidence pointing towards something, you heard something, sure. There's either that happened at some point with the track. The tracks look pretty, like they didn't look old, right? And I think there's a video on Todd's channel. You can actually see what I'm talking about right now. He made a video. I'd have to send you the links to it because it was, like I said, 2 years ago, and he's probably got 400 videos now. And you can see what I'm talking about. You can see the tracks. You can see where it picked up the rock. And like I said, I can't prove that it hit a tree, but it sounded like something hitting a tree. Right?
I want to go back to something you said. You said the prints didn't look human. And I'm going to ask you to explain that statement. Was it just simply because of the size, or was the configuration of the foot did not look human? Or
to me, it's the width that gets it every time. Mm-hmm. It's just so wide. Like my heel is a couple, maybe at the most 2.5 inches wide. I don't know. Like a normal foot is not wide, right? And this thing is 5 inches wide. It's huge, right? You can see the toe indents, and I know everyone talks about the mid-tarsal joint in the middle. I didn't see that, but it looks like a 5-toed person, but it's too wide to be a person. And that's how I differentiate it. Like it almost looks like when I'm out in the woods now with them, I'm always looking for like these, it's almost like a triangle like this. That's what and like the base is, I don't know. I don't know why. I'm always looking for triangles now, but it's just so big. And like, you won't even realize it because they're so big that you're just walking over it, right? You're like, there's no way that could be something. And you start looking at it like, wait a second, that looks like toe prints. That looks like something smashed it. So it's just, like I said, it's too big to be a person's foot unless there's a 10-foot, male out there walking in the woods, right? Yeah. And that has a 15-inch print that's double the width of the normal person. I don't know. I guess that's a possibility, but I doubt it. So, and then like Craig says, hey, have you ever gone over there? And this is probably 200 yards away. And Todd's like, no, I don't usually go over there. Like, I usually stay on this side. Like, he's like, I haven't explored all this area. Like, there's too much to explore. You guys can go wherever you want to go. So we're just kind of walking in this general area, me and Craig. And I find in this general area, Todd's doing his own thing. He's walking around, looking at the ground, looking at stuff. He's pointing out tree breaks when he sees them. He's like, look at that tree break. Check out that tree break. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? He always asks us, what percent do you think a person made that? Like give it a percent. Like, he's trying to get like our opinion on things. And then Craig's like, oh my God, Todd, look at this print. And this print we find is like 18, 19 inches, like probably 8 inches wide. This thing is huge. I put my foot in it. I took my shoe off and just put my foot in it. And it's like 4 times bigger than my foot. I'm not I don't have a huge foot. We're like a 9 or a 10. Like, I'm not a tall person. I'm like 5'7". But this thing just dwarfed me. Like, I would be scared to run into whatever made that print. Yeah. Right. And he starts explaining and, this is all Todd hearsay. This is what he says he hears. He says he hears like the T-Rex, like, boom, out there. He's like, and that's when and this is him saying it. All I can do is tell you what he says. He's like, that's when the dominant male, he calls, I can't remember what he gives them a name. He names them all, but that's not their name. Like, that's when he makes his presence. He hits the ground with his foot. Because he doesn't have to make that imprint. He does it for a reason. And he's like, boom. So that's why Todd kind of calls him the boom, because they make this big boom, and you can feel the vibration. Like, it's almost like a T-Rex hitting the ground in the movie, right? And I mean, it looks like it could be a dinosaur print, to be honest with you. It was so big, and it was massive. Just looking at, and it was probably 3-4 inches deep into the ground, and you're jumping on the ground as hard as you can. You're not doing anything, right? So whatever made that print, 1,200 pounds at least. Like, it was ridiculous. So we sit there and took pictures of it, talked about it. He goes into, you think a person did this, right? So just looking at it, I'd say no, right? There's no way. So to me, that was like really substantial evidence so far, just finding these prints, hearing the rock knock sound. I was like, okay, like, I'm having a decent time from my perspective. I'm getting a little bit of what I came for. I'm like, okay, this is pretty interesting. The tree breaks, everything else. So we do that. And the other thing, so Craig's kind of a adventurer. He's like a 32-year-old, or I don't know, 30-year-old guy, single guy. He likes the dirt bike. He's just like I said, he does like adventurous stuff. He's like, hey, let's go out in the woods at night in our e-bikes, right? And Todd's like, I don't know, nothing out in these woods or ever see lights, or like, he's like, I don't want to spook a bear. He's like, I don't know, it's just dangerous to go out there. Like, nothing out here ever sees like a silent bike at night, right? And I was like, oh, let's just do it, Todd. Let's do it. And he's like, all right, fine, let's do it. So we go out one night doing that, and we park probably a mile away from base camp. Like, this is I get wrong with my direction. It's south of base camp. So it's like an open spot. And Todd does this call every now and then. Right? He'll say, if you guys want to do a call, you can. You don't have to. But every now and then he's like, I just feel like doing a call. So he does this, like, it's like a pro wrestler. Like, his calls sounds like a pro wrestler going, I don't remember his name. He goes, woo, right? And I don't want to do it on here because I'll just sound like a jackass. But it echoes throughout that whole mountain range when he does it. It's super loud. So he does it to one side. And like I said, he does 2 calls. So he does it one to his left, one to his right, and we're just sitting there in the pitch black dark on our e-bikes, like kind of beside him. We don't have any lights on, and we're just listening. And about 45 seconds later, you just hear this huge crash, and it's hard to judge distance. Just huge crash, just go boom, boom, right? And I'm just like, what the hell was that? And he's like, you guys heard that right. I'm telling you, I do 2 calls. That's our callback. I was like, he's like, do you think I have some guy out in the woods over there, like half a mile away, waiting for me to call? He's like, this wasn't planned. You're the ones that want to take these bikes out here. I didn't lead you here. You did it. He's like, do you think that was me doing it? And I was like, I'm going to say 99% no. Anyone's out in the woods and without a fire or a light in those woods is crazy. That's just my opinion. So, and it was so loud. It was like, boom, boom. It sounded like something breaking a tree, right? Like, and pushing it over. So we're just like, oh, that's crazy. And he's like, if you guys, he's like, there's a ridgeline up there. We can go up there the next day. Okay, let's do that. So we go up there the next day. We're following this ridgeline. We have like I said, he's kind of a spiritual in nature in tune guy. So he's very into like doing, like being in tune with nature. And he thinks, and this is his perspective, like, the more they see that you're foraging on the berries in the ground and like drinking the water, they're more like, hey, these guys are, kind of like us in a sense. Right.
Right.
And sorry, I got 3 kids, so so we kind of do this like ritual thing where we drink the water from the stream, and it's all like super pristine water up there. It's like off a glacier, better than the well water in Texas, right? So we drink and we go up this hill. We have lunch. We start walking down this ridge line. He's like, we see tree breaks. We see old tree breaks. Like the whole time we're seeing tree breaks. And then we finally get to this one tree on this ridge line. And by the way, he has a Garmin with him that he pays for where he can just like do GPS points, right? And then he can do like an SOS in case somebody really gets badly hurt.
Yeah.
And maybe get someone out there, maybe not, right? But he's doing like some GPS stuff, and we're walking on this ridge line, and we see this tree that's really out of place. Like it's super, when you break a tree, you can see how fresh the wood is, like right away. Like you can tell, you can smell it. Right, we could smell how fresh this wood is. And it was about 12 feet of this tree off the top on the ground. And we couldn't find where the tree was that it came from. And we're looking around, and we finally find the tree, and it's a good 30 feet away. Right. And we're looking at this tree, and we're like, that's not a dead tree. Oh, there's no reason for that to be on the ground. And then like they're picking this tree up and seeing how heavy it was. It takes 2 of them to pick it up. Craig and Todd pick it up. And like I said, it's about 12 feet. And it's the top 12 feet of this tree. And then we start looking at the tree, and like you can see where there's some limbs that are whatever went up this tree. Something went up this tree and was breaking a few of these really loose limbs, right? And then we start looking at the ground, and there's a track or 2 right below the tree, and we start looking at the ground and like a circular pattern, and then there's like I said, it's on a ridge line. So and you start seeing 3-4 prints going up this hill, and like I said, all the prints, most of them I saw was probably about 15 inches of it, and they all look very similar. And they're going up this hill. They stop at this tree, and so only thing we could think of was, this was the ridge line where we got the call back from. This thing went up this tree, or 2 of them. I don't know how they broke it, but they went up this tree and broke it, like just smashed it off the top. And they literally threw it through another, like the tree right beside it had limbs from this tree that was all the way through it. Like they threw it into it and down. Like if this tree got hit by wind or lightning, it would go, it'd kind of like fall, and, it'd probably be, 5-10 feet at the most away from the tree where it fell from, right? This one was 30 feet away, and it went through a whole nother tree to land where it landed. So you could see all the branches.
Where it landed, was that in an area that would be more easily recognizable, that you guys would be like, oh, hey, what the hell is that? Or, was it, did it look like it was done intentionally to draw your attention to it? or was it just by chance that you guys noticed it?
I mean, there's kind of a pathway. All these trees are down, right? Like this on this pathway. And we're just kind of following this down tree path on this ridge line. So we're kind of just looking for evidence, and we just more or less saw it on the ground. I don't know placement, if it was like intentional or not, but we noticed like a fresh tree. Like you could tell, like we ripped some of the wood off and we looked at it. Like it looked like somebody broke it the night before. If that was just our opinion. And Todd's been out there long enough. He can tell when a fresh break is. Like he tells you all about all these trees. Like I said, he's really into the ecology, but yeah, it was crazy. Like and I can't say for sure that's what we heard. Right. But I'm just saying circumstantial. There's a lot of evidence that, like, the first boom that I heard would be this thing breaking in half, and the second one boom would be this thing flying through another tree and hitting the ground. It would have been really loud in the middle of the night with no wind, because there was no wind. There was zero wind that night. And like I said, I can't say it was for sure, but it was like pretty. I don't know. It was damning, for my opinion. And there was actually like another stick up this other tree that it flew through that was off a whole different type of tree, just hanging there. And there was no, I think it was a large tree. And it was the stick from a large tree just hanging there. And Todd didn't even see it. Craig's like, look at that stick up there. That didn't even come off that tree. That's a different type of stick. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know what to think about it. He's like, I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole thing. So he's just like, so we circle back and go back to the part where we had a call. We did GPS, and it was, I know you can make a straight line from anywhere to anywhere, right? That's not saying much, but the general location from there to there was the same, right? So it wasn't like it was like off to the far right or anything, but it was in that general space of where he did that call and where we heard it from. So I don't know. It was interesting. I don't know what made it. Like I said, the footprints to me were just showing maybe something heard him do this, and it was like, hey, screw you. I'm going to go up this hill and make a bigger sound, right? I'm going to break this tree in half and show you who's who. I don't know. But nonetheless, it was interesting, right? Like, I was like, okay, that's very weird. And then the next night we tried to like replicate it. Like, we're like, oh, yeah, we did it once. We'll try it again. So we go up this path instead of on the e-bikes. Todd's like, nah, it's too dangerous. Let's just go in this car and turn the lights off and just go up real slow. And then we'll park it and do the same. So that's what we did. And when we did it, we started hearing this smash, 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 like right in front of us in the woods, right? We're like, oh, and then it kind of stopped, right? And we just hear like a couple breaks, and Todd's like, if that was a Sasquatch charge, I can't tell. He's like, I can't definitively say it was. Could be a bear. Like, so he basically's like, you guys need to get behind the car. We need to get in this car quick. If this bear comes out, nothing comes out. And he's like, I don't know, guys. It sounded like a Sasquatch. We started talking about it when we went back at the campfire. He's like, we're just going to have to wake up and go look for evidence, right? He was all about like looking for evidence, looking for this stuff. So like people's perspective of him, I was trying to get perspective of everyone saying, oh, he's like, everything's a fart in the woods is Sasquatch, right? He's very evidence oriented. Like he doesn't always jump to it. He tries to look and make sure, like, he has a notion of something, but he doesn't know for sure, right? So he's not super much like that. There's just a lot of stuff that happens when I'm there. So I think he's just used to it. Like he's like, yep, that was something, because I hear this all the time. But we went out there the next morning. He's like, I'm recording. I'm walking around. He's recording. Craig's recording. We're trying to look for evidence. And Craig comes up on a bunch of basically black bear scat, right? Like a bunch of it. And you can see where this bear laid down that night. You can see where it was tromping through the woods to charge at us. He's like, damn it, guys, that's not a Sasquatch. That's a black bear. So you can, anyway, he goes into like, he knows a lot about bears. So he's like, oh, by the size of its, scat, you could probably tell it's about 400 or 500 pound bear, blah, blah, blah. Right. He's like, that's disappointing, but it's the process. Like we thought it was, it's not. Right. So that sucks, but we're going to move on.
Let me jump back a little ways. Going back to that one print that you talked about, he said was from the large alpha male. He calls him what, Boom or Boomer?
I think and if you listen to his channel, he does this all the time. But he calls like Sasquatch the Boom is what he calls them sometimes.
Okay.
Because they make that boom sound.
Yeah. So that print that you were talking about, that in his theory is that the large male comes into an area and then slams his foot down to generate the shake and the quake, and to get people's attention, to let everybody know he's there.
Right.
Was that the only print that you found in that area, or were there multiple prints? There was just the one that was that deep.
I found some prints probably 20 feet from there. This is the first prints that I personally found, right? It was, and if you look at them, they were smaller. Anyway, I can get into what Todd thinks age is versus print size, but it's all conjecture. That's just that's his experience, and that's what he thinks. I don't know if it's accurate. It's kind of, it is what it is, but I think it was like 12 inches long. You could tell it was pretty wide. He's like, that's probably like a 10 to 12 year old. So I found a pathway of prints like that, like 3 or 4 of them. And he's more or less like, maybe this big guy's trying to show the smaller ones how to do it. I don't know. Right. But he says when the big guy comes around, he seems to make his presence known. Right. So, and that's like, he doesn't have to leave that print. He does it for a reason. He wants us to hear it. He wants us to know, hey, maybe he's watching when we found it. And he's like, oh, hey, yeah, I made that print for you guys. You guys actually found it. Right. I don't know. Yeah. That's just him, he's like spitballing, like maybe that's the reason, right? Like maybe they're trying to talk to us and we don't know it, and we're just too stupid to know what to do, right? So, I mean, that's basically it. But there was some tracks there. Like I found some, like I said, I feel like in that general location, if you look hard enough, you find tracks everywhere. Like the last time I went, I found a whole bunch of tracks. If you're looking up and not looking down, you're not going to see them. But if you're actually looking, like scouring the ground, like you start finding them, and you're like, oh yeah, there's a print right there, and it's almost like you're like almost get bored with it because there's so many prints, and it's like, okay, yep, there's another one, right? So unless you find that deep print, like that big one we found, right? It's almost like, yeah, they're everywhere out here. Like for sure, there's something going on here.
Something that you said when he told you to get back behind the car because he wasn't sure that there was a bear or a Sasquatch. Now, from having watched his documentaries and from having watched him when he was out with Les Stroud, Survivor Man, there's something kind of telling to me about his perspective on these things. If he was confident that it would have been a Sasquatch, he would not have implored you guys to get behind the vehicle. But because he wasn't sure, and it could have been a bear, which is a wild animal, he wanted you to get behind the vehicle. Well, Sasquatch, as far as we know, is also a wild animal of sorts, right? We're not completely sure what the hell it is, whether it's closer akin to us or closer akin to a primate in the gorilla or type sense. So what's your takeaway from that? I mean, does he have a, I'm not quite sure how to ask the question. Does he have a consistent feeling about or possible knowledge about what these things are and fears them less than a wild animal, even though they can be quite large?
So what he's conveyed to me is there are some aggressive ones and there's some inquisitive, peaceful ones, and they're all kind of have their own personality trait. The ones what he calls in this general, whatever you want to call it, area habituation, he says they've never been aggressive towards him. So he's more or less not really. And he said if they wanted him out of there, they would have pushed him out of there. Like, that's his perspective. He tells a story where he's in California, I don't know where, and the Sasquatch troop or whatever you want to call them were really aggressive towards him, and they actually laid hands on him, is what he says, right? And that's going to be in his next documentary, right? Which is supposed to come out at some point. Like, you know, he's trying to make negotiations, and it's, like I said, I don't know the business of it, but he's trying to release like Discovering Bigfoot 2, and a lot of that storyline is going to be in that one from what he tells me. But he says that he won't go back there because they didn't want him there. Like, he's like, nope, not going back there. They did not like me. I'm not going back. So he seems to have, I don't know, some kind of communion with the ones we're in the place that we're in this area, right? So he's more or less, he's trying to get this interaction with them. He's not scared of them. He's really, honestly, he's kind of going into like spiritual mode. Like, he was hardcore science, hardcore, really almost like biology to begin with. And my perspective of him now, he's very much more in tune to like mind speak and trying to go down that route, and telepathy, and trying to communicate with whatever these beings at a different, almost spiritual level more than physical, right? And he has some outrageous stories. Like, I can get into stories he told me with you, and he doesn't like harp on them, I think, a lot on his channel, because like I said, I think he puts it all out there and he kind of gives you a bit of it, but he doesn't go into all of it, because I don't know, I feel like he's holding back because he thinks people are going to think he's nuts. That's what my take on it. I don't know if that's really his take, but like he told me some crazy stories, and I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, man, that's so hard to believe, right? But I've been, like I said, I've been out with him 3 times. I've been out with him. The second time I took my nephew with me, and the third time I just went out with random people again that were from Pennsylvania, right? Like 2 brothers. And so when you go out with someone a few times and people don't know him, like, he tends to overlap some of his stories, right, that I've heard him tell before. So I'm listening, and I'm kind of listening for that, like, tall tale when he's doing it, right? Like, oh, I've heard this story. I want to see if he changes it. Yeah. And I haven't heard him change what he's told since I've met him, right? It's always the same story. He doesn't like add to it. And to me, that's like a sign of a truth teller, someone that doesn't embellish, because it's really, when you're telling a lie, you like to embellish it just a little bit to make it more.
Yeah, as you tell it, you pick out little things. It's like, oh, it'd be even better if I said this. And that's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing that has always kind of confounded me about Bob Lazar with the whole. I worked at S4, in the Area 51 area, and I mean, I remember being a kid watching in 1989 when he did his first interview with George Knapp in the front seat of a pickup truck. And he has never changed his story.
Right.
I've heard interviews where there are additional things that he talked about, but the base story has never changed. And, throughout all, I mean, okay, I do a paranormal podcast. I believe in a lot of things. There's some things I don't believe in. I don't believe in everything. But to me, hearing someone like that, who has maintained a very consistent nature about themselves and their story over decades, that does tend to lean into some credibility for me.
Yeah. And I'm, like I said, I'm skeptical. I have I'm always looking for like, oh, this is a sign that he's, full of shit.
Mm-hmm.
I still look for those cues, even though I've been out with him a lot, and I respect him. And I think, honestly, this is my full out opinion, I think he's legitimate. But I still look for that possibility, just because, I'm skeptical, and I'm, I've right now in my position, that's what I do. Observability czar. So that's what I'm there to observe a bit. So, it's difficult because he's such a passionate guy, and every time he talks, he just really wants this discovery to like be pushed out, and he and I'm talking for him, but he clearly said that he'd really love to have like a foundation to protect, Bigfoot, and like have people realize this is real. And, he wants to write the book on it, right? He wants to be someone that does, hey, we all know it's real now. Now we can start doing the research on how these things are so fantastic, right? Like, he would love to be that researcher saying, I've told you for 20 years this is real. Now let me actually get a grant to study them, right?
Yeah.
That's what he wants to do. And he, like I said, he's had a whole lot of crazy experiences, and I don't know how long. I could probably tell you everyone he told me, but I don't know how long you want to stay up today. But yeah, it's crazy. And I like to get into like the slowly go to the next expedition, right? I think that was about most activity I had in the first one, right? And we did other stuff, and there's a whole lot that happens in 8 days. So I'm trying to minimize 8 days into a 30-minute conversation, but that was the bulk of like the major things, right? The second expedition, like I said, it was in June, and that June, was like the snow and stuff hadn't even melted off the mountain peaks, and the river off the glacier was still really high. So short story, I had basically zero activity the second time around. I wanted to go up, I don't know, I just call it Survivor Man Mountain, right? But I wanted to go up that mountain. He went up there and stayed the night up there, which was crazy. It was hard to get up there. I wanted to do it. I wanted to see where he was, look at where he put those apples. And it is just insane. Like, it is like a 60-degree angle, and we slept on a 60-degree angle, and there's barely any trees. It's on the side of this cliff, right? If anyone's up there trying to take apples, they're insane. That tree is off that, like, literally 2 feet from the cliff. Like, and if you're going to climb that tree to get apples off it, I would never do that in the pitch black. Like, you're just going to hear someone fall off the mountain and just die.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just looking at the location and stuff, it was, I don't know, like, and you're going to hear somebody get up in the middle of the night and try to, I don't know, like I said, I don't believe Todd took those apples. I feel like Survivorman had like a legitimate experience up there, and then Todd's probably taken 10 people up this mountain at this point, and some people have had experiences with him up there. I didn't. I will tell you, my nephew was a bit freaked out. And Todd said, well, maybe they're feeling your like freak out energy. I don't know. Cause we're sleeping on the side of this mountain. It is a little spooky, and it's pitch black, on the side of this mountain. So he was getting I don't know, a little bit freaked out, but he later told me, and this is it's kind of a crazy story. So you can take it for what it is. This is just what he told me, and I have no reason to doubt him. But he told me after we got off the mountain, he's like, is there something Todd's not telling us? Like, do you think there's some like stuff he's not telling us about this stuff? And I was like, I don't know. He's always pretty upfront with me, but I was just thinking he's talking about Bigfoot, right? He's like, I don't know. I feel like he's not telling us something. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean. He kind of just dropped it. And then we get home, and we have like an age gap between us. So he's my nephew, but he's like 6 years younger than me. He might have an older sister that's older than me, right? So he's almost like a little brother, but he's a nephew. So I was talking to his mom. She's like, "Did you talk to Keaton?" I was like, "About what?" He's like, "He saw something up there. You need to talk to him." I was like, "Well, I don't know why he wouldn't tell me." He's like, she's like, "Oh, well, I think it freaked him out." And I was like, "Oh, okay. All right." So I call him, like, "What the heck? Why you tell me what you see?" He's like, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. And I'm just like, okay, well, what was it? And he ends up drawing a picture of it for me, but like I said, this is a little nutty. I'm just going to preface that.
There's no judgments here, and this is why we're all here.
Yeah. So he said, looking up the side of the hillside on the way back down the mountain, like up on this ridge line, like he saw this, I don't know, creature looking at him, and he said it had a goat face, like a goat goatee, big horns, and like mantis arms. He said it looked at him for a second, popped his head out, and kind of slowly backed away. And he was like double taking, looking at it. This is him. He said he double take, looked at it. He's like, "Am I seeing this?" He said it was like 3-4 seconds. He saw it, and he was just like, I don't know what that was. I don't understand what I just saw. And then he was, like I said, he was kind of quiet about it the rest of the time. I think it just freaked him the hell out. I don't know. I don't have any reason to disbelieve him. I don't have a reason for him to lie to me about it because It sounds just super crazy, but it is weird. Eventually, I sent a picture to Todd and said, "Hey, what do you think about this? I think maybe this is why Keaton was so freaked out." And he said, "You know what? I've never seen anything like that up there, but if I saw that, I'd be freaked out too." So he was more or less, he tries to stay in his lane. He's like, "I'm trying to search Bigfoot. I'm not trying to do aliens. I'm not trying to do this stuff. I'm not, anyway." So that he tries to stay in the lane a bit.
It's interesting because if I remember right, and I may not remember right, but I've watched the Survivor Man series multiple times. I've watched Todd's documentary several times, but coming off that mountain, was that not where Les Stroud said that he had the dream that he was being sat on by something, but that was the same mountaintop that he witnessed those lights out over the mountain range?
Yep, same mountain. Yep. And I think that's another thing he said. Like I said, I'm just telling you what Todd tells me. I don't know if it's true. He says, "Yeah, they'll do that. They'll run over you and see if you wake up, and they'll run by you and see if you wake up, and then eventually, if you don't wake up, they'll come and just sit on you, like it's a game to them. Like, hey, I'm gonna go sit on this guy. I'm gonna mess with him, and I'm gonna go right. Like kind of like almost like kids." Like, "Hey, let's mess with this guy." Right. So he said that he's had, and like I said, this is what he told me. He said he had that experience before. Right. And like, if you brought him on the show, he would tell you the same thing. Like, he's not hiding it. He said he's had something similar happen to him. That's like them playing. And he's like 100% that happened to Survivor Man. Like, it wasn't a dream. That probably did really happen to him. So, and I still can't get over the fact that all this apples and power bars get off this tree, and this camera didn't catch anything but the top of this little, looks like maybe the top of something's head, right?
Yeah.
But if you do look in that video of Survivor Man, like the tree shakes a bit, and I tried to shake that tree, it ain't going nowhere. You couldn't shake that tree with a truck. That thing is in rock. It ain't shaking. Like, it's in the mountain, and it's a big tree, and then right beside it is a tree that's flipped upside down and into the ground. So you can imagine a human carrying a 300-pound tree and then flipping it upside down, put it into a mountain on the 8-hour hike. I don't think so. So it's very weird.
That's interesting. I wonder why they didn't show that in the episode.
I don't know. I don't know. They only have so much time, I guess, but it's very weird. But yeah, like I said, the second expedition, that was really, I'm telling you a story about my nephew, that something he saw, but other than that, we might have heard some like rock noises, but I didn't hear it, right? I didn't hear anything. I can't say there was anything, but that was it. Like, there was a bunch of grouse there. And the weird thing about grouse that we learned is when they jump off of a tree, and we saw them do it, they'll clack their wings together, and it sounds like someone hitting a tree, like clack, clack, right? So that's something that could be a deterrent for people. If they have a lot of grouse in the forest around them, they will make that sound, and it does sound like, hey, that sounds like a Bigfoot hitting like two rocks together, but it's definitely a grouse. And we're like so annoyed, like we wanted to, take these grouse out, but we also didn't want bears to come and like smell it, so we just let them be free. But that was kind of irritating. But I still, I don't know. I felt like, even though I didn't have an experience that time, like, I don't know, maybe they just weren't around. Like, I don't think you're going to get that every time. Todd pretty much says, most of the time you have something, but every now and then you don't. Like, he's like, I'm not 100%. So it is what it is. So I was like, the first time I went out, I got some cool stuff. Second time, nothing. And I honestly love this area. It's beautiful. All that land up there, just getting fresh air and being away from technology for like a week, it almost rejuvenates you, in my opinion. So I like to go up there. If anybody don't see anything, I have a good time at this point. So it's almost like we talk Bigfoot and we, have a good time just in nature and like beautiful mountains and everything else, right? But the next time I went out with two guys from Philadelphia, they were brothers named Dan and Matt. Sorry, Pennsylvania, not Philadelphia. And they were, all the people I've met up there are all really nice, good bunch of people, genuine people. I met some other people while I was there. I met his girlfriend. All the people that I've met so far, even Craig, had his own experience with actual visuals. Like, every single person but me at this point has had this visual experience. So it kind of irks me a bit. That's why I keep wanting to, like, I know from my perspective, at least going up there, like, I know there's something there, and I feel like sooner or later I will have my visual. Right. But I can tell you the last time I went there was a lot of, like one step below visual, but super awesome stuff in my opinion. So if you want me to get into it, the last stuff, like, I don't. So I'll start with the smaller stuff and end with like the thing that I personally think about all the time. And all three of these times we put apples up. They never took any apples, just FYI. When his girlfriend goes out there by herself and puts apples up, they will take the apples. But I don't know if it's like a feminine energy and they just like her. But when I was there, she put a marble out on this tree stump, and it was a big marble, like about the size of a $50. They took that, right? It wasn't a squirrel. Like, I mean, it had a little bit of weight to it, and they definitely took it. Like, she puts out like mushrooms and like holistic medicine stuff, and they've been like taking stuff from her, right? So she's super happy with it, but they didn't take the apples from any time we put out there. So that's, anyway, it is what it is, right? But okay, it would have been cool if they did, right? But they didn't. So and Todd bought this $10,000-$12,000 drone, thermal 4K drone. Everybody's talking about drones. Nobody's really using them. They're too expensive, right? He's trying to like get more drone stuff, more drone footage. So he bought this pretty awesome drone that we flew every day. Like I said, it's July. So the problem with this drone is, even though it's amazing, it go like 3 to 5 miles and do all this cool stuff. But when the trees are hot, everything is hot. So you have to fly it in the morning and at night, even though the technology is like super advanced. But so you only fly it like at 8 a.m. and like 9 p.m. Right. So like, that's when we flew it. We got a lot of deer, some elk, stuff like that. But no Bigfoot. I think he has some footage of where he thought it could be a Bigfoot. Like, this is before me going out there, but he can't really substantiate it, right? It's a huge thermal, but like, anyway, it's kind of a long story in itself, and it wasn't me, so I won't get into it. But, you know, we have that. I was more or less trying my own stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to get more evidence this time. It's not just the experience for me this time. It's more of like, I want to collect some data for myself. So I made my own body cam. I put some stuff out too that I brought that are listening to other researchers saying they like the color blue and they like to play. So I brought some like blue tennis balls out there and like was throwing them around, and then I'd put them out and see if maybe they would grab them. And of course they never did. But, so, you know, we have all that in the mix. But the second day I was out there with these guys from Pennsylvania, you know, and I was telling you before the show started that, you know, I'm a pretty big proponent of Robert Kreider and what he does. Mm-hmm. So I bought this listening device. These guys are on this listening device. It's probably 8 o'clock, and they're listening around, and they're like, what, you know, they're hearing stuff. They're hearing something walking in the woods bipedally, and they're like, what the heck? And they're like, you know, they're switching back and forth, and they think they hear, like, I wasn't hearing it, right? I really bought it for everyone to use, so I was like happy they were hearing something. And like, you know, they heard, I don't know, like almost like a grunt is what they said. And then Todd was more or less like, okay. And Todd's girlfriend Ashley showed up, and they're like, let's go in the woods and see if we can, you know, he's there, let's go. So I get my body cam on and start going, and then you just hear like these footsteps in front of us, like boom, 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 right? And Dan is in the front and Todd's behind him, and I'm in the very back. And Dan's kind of getting freaked out a bit. He's like, I don't know what that is. Todd, you have the weaponry here. You need to get ahead of me. I don't know what that is. And so, you know, he gets ahead of him, and you hear it a little bit, and it kind of just disappears, right? It is what it is. It just went away, and we couldn't find it. We couldn't find the steps, the tracks, or anything. So we're just like, okay, that was weird. Let's go back to base camp. And then we go back to base camp, and we hear a few, and I'm kind of glazing over this, but it's kind of a big deal. But, you know, we hear some like almost like howls, right? Like Bigfoot calls, like we hear 2 or 3 of them. Todd's in the RV making dinner for us. Like, he makes these little dinners. They're like, you know, basically soups, right? But he's not even hearing it. And we're all like outside just smiling ear to ear, like, what the heck? Right? We were hearing this, and he's like, oh, you guys heard something? That's cool. Right? And so, you know, nothing really happens. And then the next day we go out, he's kind of doing, you know, kind of what I did the first time. He's trying to show him the area and stuff. And I'm just more or less like, hey, I'm just doing my own thing. Like, I've heard these stories. I'm going to go out myself. I'm going to do this. So I start walking in a general direction, and then his girlfriend, Ashley, she starts kind of walking parallel to me in this part of the forest. And then, like, she does a whistle. She's probably 50 feet from me. Ashley does a whistle, and she's expecting me to whistle back just to kind of, like, geolocate where we are, kind of. And I can't whistle. I've never been able to. So I'm just like, whatever. I'm not whistling back. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm just going to keep going. So I keep going, and you hear a whistle. And I'm like, okay, which I don't know. She whistling again or someone else. I'm pretty sure in my head at the time, I think Todd and the other guys are down the trail a bit. So I'm just like, I'm not really paying attention to it. I'm just looking on the ground, looking for new tracks and stuff, looking for tree breaks. And I get back to the base camp after a bit, and Ashley comes up, and she's like, man, you're so good at whistling. What are you talking about? And she's like, you know, I did a whistle and you whistle back. You can whistle better than Todd. And I'm like, I don't know how to whistle. Like, that wasn't me. And she's like, oh my God. Like, this thing was right in the middle of us, did a huge whistle, like, and we just didn't even know it was like something whistling at us. And I was like, that is crazy, because I'm telling you, I can't whistle. Yeah. And then she tries to, anyway, it was a definite was a good whistle, but I mean, it wasn't the other people. They were probably a quarter mile away. I just wasn't paying attention to it, but something was right in the middle of us and did like a clear whistle. Right. So, you know, it's pretty cool. Right.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known, but, I wish I would have known it was there, but it, you know, it is what it is. And we kind of moved on. And like I said, I think that night, they took Ashley's like whatever gifts that she put out. And also like I want to say it's kind of hard to sleep. I'm kind of a night owl, so I'll just be looking at my window a bit. So I felt the trailer shake a few times, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. That's kind of weird. Can't really see outside very well. I'm just gonna shake it off, but I did feel it shake a bit at my feet, and I'm at the end of this camper. But like the next morning, so we do a lot of hiking and stuff. I'm trying to think. Anyway, he kind of shows us some new breaks that happen, and like to go in. I mean, I can go into the breaks, but I just feel like it's a lot of like just science, and you kind of need to see the videos of it. But like we kind of go in there, and then so when we get to make the picture clear, like Todd, when he picked us all up from the airport, like it was hailing, right? So he was trying to get out to this place, and he drives this old truck, so he doesn't care as hail hits his truck, but he forgot to get gas because it was hailing. And like this other research area where this mountain is, where Sarah went up, it's miles away. So he didn't want to run out of gas. He wanted to go over there. So like he ends up leaving to go get gas, which is like the closest gas station is like an hour away from there. Right. So he's like, all right, Logan, if you want to go do your thing, you can go do your thing. Like wherever you want to go, if these guys want to go with you, they can. So I'm sitting there on this, what he calls the Porcupine Trail, which is like a trail behind kind of his base camp. And I hear some like wood sounds. I'm like, all right, let's go this way. So I'm walking, I start doing tree knocks I'm with Dan and Matt, and I get a response back, right? And I'm like, oh man, this is weird. And I do it again, I get a response back. And then at this point, I'm looking at Matt and Dan, and they're just like big-eyed, like, oh man, this is cool, right? And he can whistle, I can't, so he does a whistle. And I start doing like mouth clicks, like, popping your tongue, right? Because I don't know, it like kind of sounds like a tree knock, but it's not. And every time I'm popping my tongue, I'm getting like 2 pops back. Every time he whistles, he's getting a response back. It's just like boom, 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 boom. And so we're kind of freaking out a little bit. I'm making sure my my body cam's on, like, I'm like the cable's plugged in and everything, and I'm kind of behind. So we kind of split up in 3 different directions, and there's this cut to where it goes into old forest where the loggers can go. It's really like national forest. So I know where this cut line is, and we're getting kind of far from base camp. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm yelling at these guys. They're probably 40 feet ahead of me. I'm like, are you guys making those sounds? And they're not answering me. And it's just constant boom, boom. And then I heard like 3 knocks at one point. Most of them was boom, boom, or just one, right? And it was consistent. I'm like, okay, I guess they're not doing it because I can't see them anymore and they're not responding to me. So I finally catch up to these guys. Like I said, I'm like a minute or 2 behind them. And Dan's looking up this tree, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, it's coming from this tree. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I've got it on video, but you can see it clearly, and it's this, I'd say it's 90-foot tree. It doesn't have limbs until about 6 feet up, and it's probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet in round. It's huge, right? It's old forest tree, 200-300-year-old tree, and it's probably one of the biggest trees in the forest. And he's like, I don't know, man, this is weird. Like, and I'm like, I kind of want to climb that tree, but I can't. And we're just making jokes like, is it cloaking up there? Is something up there cloaking? The Bigfoot cloaking.
Is that what he was getting at? That there was something up there, and you knew it was there, but you couldn't see it?
So we're sitting there talking about it, and I sit down on this down tree, and we're discussing it. I'm like, what could this be? And as we're talking, and the whole time we're talking, you just hear knock, 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 like up this tree. I'm looking at a tree. There's no tree rubbing on it. I know what a tree rub sounds like. And it's like a boom, boom. Like, and I'm just like, I don't understand, guys. Like, there's something up this tree. And then nothing gets Dan, but he's like, maybe it's just the tree, like a knot in the tree expanding, and it's popping and it's popping. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe, like, could be. He's like, maybe I think maybe I've seen that before on like a video. And I'm like, I don't know. Could be. I don't know. But the whole time we're talking, it keeps interrupting us and just knocking and knocking. And I'm just like, I really wish I could just cut this tree down. Or to like go climb this tree, because you look up it and you can't see the top, right? And it gets kind of bushy around 60 feet. And then if you really wanted to see over that 60, 70 feet, you really can't. It's like foliage, and you can't see it clearly. You can't see the top clearly. I do like a very brief kind of half circle around the tree, because I'm a little disheartened, because I'm almost in agreement with Dan. Like, maybe it is a natural tree sound. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't live in this forest. Maybe I've never heard a tree pop that loud, but maybe it is a tree pop. Like, maybe that's, Dan's like, yeah, maybe that's what Bigfooters hear in these tree pops. I'm like, I don't know, maybe. So we're just openly discussing it, and I start walking around, and then we start finding tracks all around this tree. So there's like I said, 16 inch track right there, big one. I'm like, oh. He's like, yeah, there's one right there. And then I start walking about 10 feet ahead, and there's smaller tracks, clear ones, look like a smaller version of the big one. I'm like, I don't know, guys. There's tracks all around here. Like, you can see where a couple of deer laid. There's deer scat. There's actual bear scat. There's actually an old jerry can there that's not very old, actually, but a bear had chewed on it and brought it there. I don't know why a bear would do that and why it would be at this tree. It's kind of an odd coincidence, but it's there. And we're just kind of sitting there, and I don't know what to do. Todd's not there. And I'm just like, it's 4, and this is in the middle of the day. It's 4 p.m, right? There's no wind. It's not tree rub. It's just this tree's talking to us, right? And I don't have like a thermal or anything. I can't, anyway. And not like I have a thermal camera with where I can try to see some heat vision or anything. So, the only option we have is sit there all day or just keep going. Because at this point, I'm like, okay, well, I guess we can keep moving. And there's actually like a tree, a tree break pretty close there too, right? So there's a lot of, trace evidence around this tree, and it keeps knocking at us. And, I'm more and more like getting a little bit disheartened, because I'm kind of on Dan's, okay, maybe it's natural. Like, I don't understand, but why would it start knocking at us? Like, at that moment we started doing knocks, and why did it lead us here and then keep doing it? We're like, okay, well, we're just going to walk this way and kind of circle back to base camp. At this point, we're probably half a mile away from base camp, right? So we're like, okay, anything behind us that's hearing knock sound, we'll just disregard and say it's that tree. So we probably get 100 feet away, and then you just hear one big loud knock, and then it stops. Doesn't do it anymore. I'm just like, of course, right? I don't know. So again, I don't know what to think of it. And in hindsight, I wish I would have just stayed there. And after I talked to Todd later on, I wish I would have stayed there, because he just made me feel like stupid about it. But so that's when I kind of circle back, and then I come up on some like really fresh tracks again. And there's a YouTube video of it. I can send you a couple links. Yeah. You can see this track. You can see the indentions. You see the toe prints. And right beside the track is another bigger one that you can't see as well, like on camera. Right. The other one's clearly through a piece of old wood. You can see everything. Right. And there's a bigger one right beside it. So Todd asked me later in the video, do you think he led you here? I'm like, I don't know. I just honestly just stumbled upon this thing. Like, I'm just in the woods going, right? I don't know if something led me here or not, right? Like, I'm a little apprehensive about it. So I'm like, nah, I don't know, right? No idea. So we get back to base camp. I start telling Todd all this stuff. He's like, you guys know that trees don't knock at you, right? I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not in this forest like you. I don't know what trees do. I don't know what these old trees do. He's like, yeah, well, you start knocking. He's knocking at you. It's knocking back at you. You get there. You see footprints. You see tree breaks. It's still knocking at you. And then when you're leaving, it stops. You think, I mean, he's like, how much more evidence do you guys want? That I'm really thinking there was some, like, to me, I think there was some of that tree messing with you guys. I'm just like, you know, you could be right. I don't know. I feel stupid for not staying there and like circling this tree more and trying to like do more. I mean, I didn't even think to knock on the tree when it was knocking at me. Right. I didn't even think about it because I didn't know what to do with it. Like in hindsight, I wish I would stay there and just hit the tree and see if I would have got a response back, or maybe just stay there for like an hour or so and just see if something come down. You know, I don't know. But anyway, hindsight's 2020, but it was still an interesting experience. And I have some body cam footage of, like I said, it's a body cam. It's not really meant for audio, but you can hear a clear knock in my audio, right? Like, and I have like a clip of it where you can hear it knock, right? So I can send that to you and you can hear it and make your own judgment, and you kind of see the area, but it was super interesting, right? So the whole time I'm just questioning if that was real or not. And then Todd's kind of leaning towards it was more Bigfoot. Dan's like, when I get the internet, I'm finding a video of this tree creek thing, and I'm going to prove to you it was just a tree doing it. I'm like, okay, like, I don't know, maybe. So he finally got Starlink out there, so he'll run that off a generator for a couple hours just to get online. He'll do some like live stuff out there. Like anyway, it's been a while, and he to get that, but he brings it up. Dan's scouring with it. He can't find nothing. He's like, only thing I can find off like 2 hours of looking online is like maybe you'll hear like a kind of a knock when it's really cold, but not when it's like 80 degrees outside, and nothing that loud. And he's like, here's an animal that kind of sounds like that. So he's doing his like, you know, scientific approach to disprove this thing. And this animal, I don't know, it's some kind of squirrel or something, or a bird. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like that at all. So I'm just like, crap. Like, I should have stayed there longer. So, you know, son of a bitch, right? Yeah. So
you had one treed.
Yeah. And that's kind of the verbiage Todd used. Like, you guys treated Sasquatch. And I'm like, well, I didn't really treat it. It made us come there. So I think if it was up there, it was just messing with us. Like, I don't know, like, no idea, but it is definitely weird. I'll just put it that way. So the whole time I'm there, I'm thinking I'm going to sleep outside one night, and I'm going to try to go off on my own. Maybe I'll have more experience on myself, right? So the whole time I'm there, I'm trying to find a spot that I feel like is a good spot, and I'm not really finding one. And again, this is the middle of nowhere forest. It's very hard to go. I don't know. Like I said, Todd has more balls than me, but it's very intimidating to go out in the middle of the woods, pitch black, dark, by yourself, right in the middle of nowhere. So I was a little apprehensive, but I was trying to do it. So this one night we were starting to go on these night walks. We'd go out in the middle of the forest and just sit in the dark, right? So like half a mile away, we just go sit in the dark. And like I said, Todd's trying to get into the less physical and more spiritual notion of this stuff. So he is like trying to more or less like mind speak and like kind of go on a different level with this stuff. He's trying to put intent out there and like do that. So I guess like almost like a meditation, right? So we're trying to, you know, sit on the forest and kind of, you know, quote unquote, meditate, whatever you want to think of it. Right. So we do that for a while, and, you know, it doesn't really bring anything. We're just like, yeah, well, that's cool. It's kind of cool to stay out here and be peaceful. So we start walking back to base camp, and on the left of us, probably, I don't know, 100, 200 feet from base camp on this trail, again, he calls the Porcupine Trail. He's like, guys, I don't know. I just feel like there's something out there on the left over here. He's like, I'm feeling it. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever you say, Todd. Right? I'll, you know, believe it when I hear it. And then he's like, I'm gonna do like just, you know, one, like, you know, he's like, I'm gonna put it out there, and he says it out loud. He's like, and it's not like super loud. It's not like you could hear it from 50 feet away. He's like, I just want you guys to knock twice to let me know you're there, right? I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. And then literally 10 seconds later, you hear, knock, knock. And I'm like, come on. You kidding me, right? So I'm just like, no, whatever. Okay. And he's like, okay, that's weird. So it kind of got, okay. So I just sat on the ground and I'm listening. He whispers. He's like, okay, guys, I'm really feeling this. Like, I feel like they're out there. I'm going to knock one more time, see what happens. Or not knock. I'm going to like verbally say, I want one knock to let me know that you guys want us to come out there or interact with us. And he's like, just do one more knock. He says real low, and you just hear knock. And I'm like, and it's not in the same direction. It's probably 50 feet to the left, and it's closer. I'm like, man, what the hell? How is he doing this? Right? And I'm just like, and it's 1:30 in the morning, right? So if he has a buddy out there doing this randomly at 1:30 in the morning, more power to him. But the percentage of me being out there and knowing the area, it's very unlikely. 99% chance that there's no one out there, right?
Right.
So I'm just like, okay, that's cool. So I go up to the tree line where these guys are, and you start hearing movement coming at us. And I'm just like, okay. And he's like, what do you want to do, guys? I asked for it. They gave it to us. You want to go in the woods? I'm like, all right, well, I can't. He's like, we're not turning the lights on. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't know how far I can get in these woods, but we can try. So let's do it. So we walk 100 feet into these woods, like kind of straight on to the right a little bit. And we get to a spot. We sit down. I mean, he's kind of more or less sitting, thinking, meditating, if you want to say. We're all just real silent. And then you start hearing stuff behind us walking around, like moving. And then you start hearing stuff coming towards us. And I'm just like, okay, what am I going to do here? I can't, it's pitch black. I can't see anything. Like, even if there's someone in front of me, I can't see it. And even there's a mouse in front of us that we kind of hear just walking right in front of us, right? It's this little mouse. And then it, it knocks one more time, and then it sounds like it comes at us. And then we're sitting there like, okay, what are we going to do? Because it sounds like they're in front of us, so they're behind us. And, at this point it's 1:45, 2 a.m. And he's like, we can see her and see if something happens. If you guys are tired, I don't know what to do. He's like, we've been sitting there for like 10 minutes, no activity. He's like, if you guys want to go in, let's go in. I was like, okay. So we just sit there for a couple minutes. All right, let's go. So again, very weird that we get reaction just off of, honestly, Todd's intent, if you want to call it. And we all heard it. The whole group of people heard it. And it was, like I said, interesting that he said he was feeling something and this happens. And all I can tell you is that's what happened, right? It sounds crazy, but that's what happened. So I ended up going back. Most people are pretty tired. We all go back to the trailer, and they're all super loud snorers. They snore so loud, like a symphony in there. And I can't go to sleep because I've kind of like, I don't know, I'm kind of pumped up from all that. And I'm looking out this window, just looking out. It's probably 2:33 in the morning. And I just see like a burst of light above the trees, right? Like a camera flash. And I'm just like, what the heck is this? And then it just, boom, camera flash, right? And then I start seeing maybe, like, it's hard to tell. There's so much shadows, but I thought I saw movement out there, right? I can't say for sure, but I thought I saw something move like left to right. I was like, okay, this is very weird. I don't know what that flash was. I don't know what that was. So eventually I just fall asleep. It's like 4 a.m. I go to sleep, but the flashlight was weird. It wasn't like a meteor or anything. It was definitely like, I can't say it was an orb, but I don't know why there's a flashlight above the tree line, right, like 30 feet in the air. Right. So that was, again, that's a weird experience. Like I said, we go hiking again. Dan has like something that happens to him. I wasn't with him, so I can't really tell you the full story, but he felt like something came up on him while he was out there kind of by himself, right? So, I was just like, that's cool. Like, I'm not there. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know. And, Todd's more or less like, yeah, I think you had some experience, but he wasn't there either. So that was one other thing. And I'm kind of blowing through this a little bit just because I can talk a long time. But The last thing that happened to me is, like, again, I said I was trying to find a spot to be by myself, right? And I was going to go out. I thought, okay, I'll just go out. I knew this area is kind of open. I was just going to sleep in my sleeping bag on the ground with a little fire, right? And then, of course, it starts raining. Hadn't rained the whole time. And I'm like, man, I don't want to go out in the rain. And we're up by the fire just talking up. He's telling a bunch of stories about Indians and the Cree elder people and all these stories. And they're all interesting stories. And he's, more or less, he's getting tired. It's kind of a funny story, but I get him. I'm like, Todd, come on, man, you got to drum up something here. Like, make something happen. It's 11:30. I'm going to leave in a couple days. He's like, all right, I'll try to make something happen. And he goes out with this Bluetooth speaker and starts like playing the Indians, the 1990 song "Return to Innocence" with the I kind of Indian sound.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. I record it. He's like dancing around with this thing. He's trying to like get something to notice us, I guess, right? And and then the other guys go out and then kind of like get like positive energy going. And I actually have a recording of it. It's pretty funny. So that all dumbs down. Nothing happens. I'm like, all right, I'm going to just sleep by the fire. It stops raining. I'm like, I'm just going to sleep by the fire by myself. And so I lay down. It's probably 1:00. Matt and Todd go into the trailer. And then Dan's out there with me. He's like, you don't mind if I just sit out for a little bit? I can't go to sleep. I'm just kind of like, he's like, he likes knives. He's like whittling this wood with his knives. And I'm like, I don't care, man. Just whatever you want to do. And so I kind of doze off a little bit. It's like 2:00. I open my eyes. I don't have no idea what time it is. It's dark outside. I see Dan with his head back on this chair snoring, right? So I didn't even know he fell asleep out there. I was like, he fell asleep. Like, whatever. Right? I'm not going to wake him. And again, I don't know what time it is until after, but I'm going to tell you what time it is just up front. So about 4:30, Matt gets up. I see him get up and I see him put 2 logs on the fire to make whatever, just because it's dying down a little bit. He's like, all right, good night. And I'm like, oh, all right, good night. And I'm kind of in and out of it. And then I close my eyes and I look up, and what Matt didn't tell me that he tells me later on is he heard some stuff behind him, and it was, not Matt, Dan. He heard some stuff behind him and it was freaking him out. And that's why he went inside. Like, he heard a bunch of noise behind him and he's like, I don't know, I'm going inside. Right. And I was like, well, thanks for telling me, bud.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right. So I'm looking at the fire. I'm on my right side, kind of like laying on my side. Right. And I'm kind of on a slant a little bit, like, how a fire pit, you kind of have a slant down a little bit. So I'm on a slant kind of where I can't turn all the way to my left, really, because I'm still kind of at an angle. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to get some sleep. And then I kind of wake up. And at this point, it's about 5:15. And I don't know what time the sun comes up here because I've been waking up around 7 and it's already up, right? But apparently at this time of the year, mountain time, the stars don't really come out about till midnight, and then the sun comes up about 5. So I'm not used to that. I'm used to my central time zone and a little bit different ratio. So I don't really know till later, till I look at my phone, but it's about 5:15, and I start seeing the glimmer of blue dawn, right? In my right eye, I'm, okay, nothing's going to happen. I can finally kind of get some rest, right? And at this point, I'm alone. I can hear all 3 of those guys snoring from 20 feet away, right? And as I turn from my side to my back, and I put my hands down and try to get more comfortable, and that's my exact thought was, all right, I can sleep now, right? Nothing's going to happen. And as I lay down and do that, something was behind me, watching me, right? And as I turn, I spooked it because I didn't know I was going to turn. And all you hear is 2 feet jump backwards, like, and I'm like, oh, son of a bitch, what the hell is going on? Right? It was like boom, boom. And it was like, not like a loud boom, boom, but when someone hits the ground, the sound of 2 feet hitting, right? That's what it sounded like. And the substrate there is kind of dirt, grassy, right? So I could hear it clearly, and I'm on my back, and my heart's going super fast. I'm pretty sure you can see it through the sleeping bag, right? And I can't fully turn to my left because I'm just, like I said, I'm kind of at an angle. So for me to turn all the way left, I'd have to turn my entire body, right? So at this point, I'm a little freaked out. I'm trying to open my left eye so I can see more of my peripheral out of my left, but my body's not letting me, right? So I have my right eye cracked. I can see like the blue dawn almost a little bit. I'm like, oh man, I don't know what to do here. I need to calm down. Like, I know I heard that. All right, I'm thinking in my head, I'm just going to calm down, get my heart rate to go down. I'm going to listen just to make sure I'm not crazy, right? So about a minute and a half goes by, and I just hear and like footprints walking, like feet dropping beside me, right? And it's literally 4 or 5 feet from me. And I'm like, oh, my heart rate starts going up again. I'm like, oh man, I'm at a total disadvantage right here. I'm on the ground at an angle. That this is like a big
in
foot.
A sleeping bag.
In a sleeping bag. I have a knife in the bag with me and a shotgun to my right. That's not it. I have to grab for it, right? And I'm going in my head. I'm like, okay, that's not a bear. It would have tried to jump on me already. Okay, it didn't sound like a bear. It's not making sounds. It's definitely 2 feet. It's walking beside me. I'm going through these motions in my head. I'm like, okay, I have the total disadvantage. I'm on the ground. It's above me. If I turn to my left, is it going to like scream at me and kick me in the face? Is it, I'm going through all these scenarios in my head. I'm like, okay, I just need to calm down. And I just keep hearing it like walk beside me, and I'm trying to open my left eye. And I'm like, man, I can't get this eye to open. It's a little bit of fear. If you're not out there, you could probably say, oh man, I would have looked, like I would just like popped up and looked, and I would have saw me a Bigfoot. Right. And I was like, I was trying to, but man, that notion of the unknown and the fear just kind of hits you, and you're by yourself, and it's like, and at the same time, I don't want to like make this thing go away. I want it to like think I'm asleep and like walk around me, and maybe it'll go in front of me. I could catch a peek without moving, so that's what I'm doing. And I keep hearing the footfalls, and it's so light. It's like, I don't know. It's so light. The feet walking are just so light. It's barely, I can barely hear it, like the grass movement, right? I'm like, okay, I came out there, I gotta look. So I'm gonna turn to my right and act like I'm rolling over to my right, and then I'm just gonna like kind of yawn a little bit, and then I'm just gonna pop my head back over my shoulder and try to look as fast as I can. So that's what I did, right? I hear all that, I turn to my right, I'm like I made like a sound to let it know I'm like somewhat awake, and then I pop my head over, and there's nothing there. Right? There's whatever was right beside me, it's gone. I'm like, I'm like, I get up, I'm looking for prints, I'm looking around, like the sun is almost all the way up now. I'm like, oh man, like I wanted the courage to look at this thing, but man, it was right up on me, and I was like, oh my God, like I can't do it. Like, so anyway, Todd more or less says everybody gets what they need. So to me, that was like, I can still hear those sounds in my head, right? Yeah. I can still hear this thing walking by me, and it's like I was in the open air, and it was crazy, but like at the same time, like, it's, to me, it's proof that there's definitely something there, even though I didn't see it. And, maybe if I go out again, like I'll have the courage to pop my head over my shoulder. But, it really wasn't there for more than probably 5 minutes. Right. And I did eventually get it, but it just ghosted me and left. Right. It was gone. And I don't know where it went or where it came out of. I have a general idea, but it didn't leave any tracks. It was just there. And like 10 minutes later, I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, oh man, it's only like 5:45. Like, when does the sun come up here, right? And then Dan pops out to go to the bathroom. And I was like, should I tell this guy this happened? No, I'm just gonna go back to sleep. I'll tell him when he wakes up. So I walk around this place. I can't go back to sleep, but doing circles around this area, like the base camp. And I just finally said, all right, whatever. I'm just gonna go back into the RV and lay down. And at this point, it's daylight. It's probably 7 o'clock. And then I get up around 8:30, and Todd's like, hey, anything? I'm like, oh, yeah, a lot of stuff. And he's like, what? Really? I was like, yeah, because he thought I wasn't going to make it through the night. He's like, whatever, you'll be in this RV soon enough. I was like, oh no, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think I would have been. I would have been in the RV.
But I don't know. I think that's what. And anyway, I really think if you're more by yourself, they'll seem to come out. And I don't know what it is, but it seems like when I've been out there, it's like the hours between 9 and 11, and then like 4 and 6 in the morning is when they seem to be active, right? And I kind of just told Todd, we did like a reenactment of it, and I don't know, he's really bad about posting videos, but I made him a video of it. He still hasn't put it on YouTube, but anyway, it's what I definitely had an experience out there, right? So to me, to end the story is whatever's happening out there is happening, and I can't find any evidence that Todd's faking anything, right? So you can take it for what it is, and I can't find any evidence of how he made those videos, or, and I'm not going to say he made a $1 million Muppet, because I just know the guy and he doesn't have the resources, the time, or the know-how to do that. So to me, I had legitimate experiences so far, and they're convinced me that Todd is legitimate, right? So you got to have to make, your own informant, if you don't go out there, it's hard to say, but if you're just blindly judging this guy saying he's fake, I really think you need to give him more credence, right? So, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Well, that's a lot. I mean, kudos to you for having the balls to sleep out there at the fire the whole time. I completely understand that unwillingness of your body to let you open that eye at the moment that was happening, because I don't know that I would have much control over my body either. I think you slide into that mode where if you can't see it, it can't hurt you.
All right.
I think from, in all fairness to Todd, I think that the man has had legitimate experiences, and I think he knows where these things are. And like you said, his passion for this, I think I heard it described as this once, that his passion for wanting to get this out in front of people overrode his ability to make good decisions at all times. And I think that was directly related to kind of somebody insinuating that he's had experiences, he knows where these things are, he can put you in the area of these things, but in his zealousness of wanting to prove to people that these things exist, there's a possibility that he may have done some things that were intended to kind of pull the wool over some people's eyes. It's nice to hear from someone like you who has spent not just a short amount of time with him, but like you said, a total of 25 days altogether, to walk away from the experience with not having that feeling about him at all. And I think that's a good thing. And I think it was wonderful of you to get a hold of me, because it may have altered what, and like I said before, I never met the man. All I have to go off of is what I've seen and what I've heard other people in the community say about him. And, a couple of them have been very well-known names. I'm not going to repeat them, but you would know right off the bat by the first names
Right.
immediately, you know. And they kind of, well, not kind of, I mean, they completely discount anything that this guy has to say. You know, Les Stroud saw something in this guy that he chose him to be a part of his series. And, you know, if he has the evidence that he claims to have, he needs to show it. Just show it. You're still going to have people that believe you. You're still going to have people that don't believe you. You know, just show it, and move past all the horse shit that has gone on because of what's been done in the past. The guy obviously knows. He obviously knows how to exist out in their land. Well, I mean, to your own statements about him, he's a stout human. He's out there. He's trekking around. He's has no problems getting around out there. He's a good tracker. He knows enough about what attracts them. The apples, the gifting, the stuff like that. It's interesting to me that you say he's started exploring the more metaphysical type aspects of these things, because from what I've seen of his that he's put out, he never really dove into that at all. It was all primarily flesh and blood animal. But there's a lot of people out there, a lot of accounts of people who have stated that they've experienced some things that just don't make any sense.
Yeah.
And the whole tree knocking back at you, that thing kind of harkened me back to Les Stroud's one episode. It was raining, and he was out with a Native American, and they were trying to make fire. They couldn't make fire, but they kept hearing something coming out of the one tree, and eventually they were able to get the fire started and everything. But they were hearing noises come from the one tree that they were right there, and that was very reminiscent of what you were talking about. Not necessarily that they were in the tree, but
Right.
Strange stuff. Very, very strange stuff. You go back again?
I think I would if my wife agrees to it, right? But if he started more of a, like I said, and I mean I think that's really his goal, more of a collaboration of discovering Bigfoot kind of foundation, right? Like, I feel like I know the guy well enough that I could be a part of that, right? But I was telling you before, British Columbia is pretty far from Texas, right? So it's just hard for me to get up there that much. Yeah. So I can do once a year. But I'm kind of looking for stuff that's closer, and I'm trying to branch out and look at other researchers at the same time. So I've kind of, I've made my deductions about Todd, and, I'm still friends. I still talk to him. We still have ideas. I still bounce stuff off of him. We still want to kind of put, since there's so much activity around that trailer, and people are so apprehensive about putting cameras up because they think, no activity with cameras. He more or less is like, they're coming around the camp so much. Maybe we should just put cameras up and then put a live feed up at all times that people can log into and go to. And, I'm pretty sure I could help him do that. Right. So, I mean, there's stuff that we're kind of bouncing around, and I'd worked with him. I'd work with him on that stuff if it comes down to it. Like I said, he's working on another documentary. He's trying to get more, big names to come out there to kind of spread it. But, I definitely go out there, and I definitely, the next guy I'd love to go out with is Robert Kreider.
Mm-hmm.
if he would agree to it, I'd love to go out with him. A lot of respect for him. But yeah, I just, the amount of time I have, I want to, if I'm going to go out for a week or a little bit longer than a week, I want to go to a spot where I know there's activity. And everybody says stuff happens, but the Bigfoot community is so big, and there's so much drama, and I don't want to reach out to all these big names. They're probably just going to blow me off anyway, right? So I don't know. It is what it is, but yeah, it's just fun to me, and I'd love to help prove the existence of these beings, whatever they are, hominids or whatever. So any part I can do, and just having fun out in nature and exploring, and I don't know, it's all a good time to me.
Well, Logan, I appreciate you getting back with me as quickly as you did. This has been a great conversation. It's put that gentleman's work into a little bit different light for me, and I have a feeling people are gonna probably, I don't know that it's gonna change their opinion, but at least it's gonna give them another perspective on looking at his work, and might get people to go back and start looking at his work that he has released again.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying is you guys might want to take a look, and maybe take out the initial skepticism to begin with, and just try to dig farther, because that's what I did, and I just that's what I found. And a lot of the people that have been up there have had way better experiences than me, and they're not really about doing podcasts or talking about it. So yeah, I know another guy that would probably come on, and that's kind of working with him more, that had a better experience than me, right? And the other guy, Craig, when I went out with the first time, he had he had his own experience on his own after that. So, and he actually went up to that camp like almost like when it was snow on the ground, which is dangerous because, like I said, and he found like tons of like footprints in the snow, and he sent me videos of it, and anyway, like I said, there's a lot of people that out there that have had experience with Todd, but they're not like, I'm not saying I'm promoting them, but they're not shouting about it at all, right? They're just having their experience, and they're like, okay, yeah, I got what I needed, and I'm done, right? So I don't know. I just wanted to, I don't know, have people look at it a little harder.
Well, I appreciate that. I do, and I've watched his documentaries several times, and I'll most likely go back to it again this weekend and watch it again after having talked to you about it. So that and the Survivor Man episodes are always a great rewatch. I can't ever really get tired of those either. So
yeah,
but we're coming up on 2.5 hours. Seems to be pretty typical for my episodes. I can remember when I first started thinking about doing a podcast, it said keep it to around 45 minutes to an hour at the most, because you lose people's attention, and I don't think that's completely accurate. They seem to be going 2.5 hours a lot lately. So I appreciate you. Thanks for reaching out to me. I've got some information that I want to get to you after we shut this down, and if you get into any more, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, for sure. If I go back out next year, I'll definitely let you know.
That'd be awesome. Logan, thank you so much. I appreciate being on uNcomfortable. Thank your sister for me for turning you on to the show, and I appreciate you guys listening.
Yeah, for sure. I will let her know.
Thank you. Good night.